Jack Harrison looked out the viewport of his small research vessel and sighed. The endless darkness of space surrounded him, broken only by the distant stars and the blue-green planet below. His mission to collect data on this newly discovered world was almost complete. In just 2 more days, he would begin the journey back to Earth. The ship's computer beeped, drawing Jack's attention. A flashing red warning appeared on the screen. Engine temperature rising, system failure imminent. "That's not good," Jack muttered. He quickly tapped commands into the console, trying to stabilize the failing engines. Nothing worked. The beeping grew louder as more warning lights flashed across the control panel. Jack had only moments to decide. Stay with the ship and hope for a miracle, or take the escape pod and abandon his research. The decision made itself when the floor beneath him shook violently. A loud explosion rocked the vessel and emergency sirens blared throughout the cabin. "Computer, prepare escape pod for emergency departure," Jack called out, strapping himself into the pilot's seat of the small pod attached to the main ship. "Warning, planet atmosphere compatibility unknown. Survival chances uncertain," the computer replied in its flat voice. "Better than certain death up here," Jack said as he punched the release button. The escape pod shot away from the exploding research vessel. Jack watched through the small window as his ship, home for the past 6 months, broke apart in a series of bright flashes. The pod's computers automatically plotted a course toward the planet below, and Jack braced himself for a rough landing. The entry into the atmosphere was violent. The pod shook and rattled as flames licked at the protective shield. Jack gripped the safety harness until his knuckles turned white. The planet's surface rushed up to meet him. Oceans, mountains, and what looked like cities came into view. Cities. Civilization. The thought barely registered before impact. The pod crashed through something metallic, then skidded across a smooth surface before coming to a stop. Jack's head slammed against the control panel and darkness overtook him. When Jack opened his eyes, he found himself staring at a ceiling made of a material he had never seen before. It seemed to glow with a soft blue light. He tried to sit up but found his arms and legs restrained. "The creature is awake," a voice said. The words were in English, but the voice had a strange musical quality that no human voice could produce. Jack turned his head to see the speaker, his breath caught in his throat. Standing beside his bed was a tall, slender being with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer. Its eyes were large and completely black, and it had no visible nose, just small slits where a nose would be on a human face. "I'm not a creature," Jack said, his voice hoarse. "I'm human. My name is Jack Harrison." 2 more beings entered the room. They were similar to the first, but with slight differences in height and the patterns on their skin. "It speaks our language," one of them said with evident surprise. "Your language?" Jack asked, confused. "You're speaking English." The 3 beings looked at each other. "We are speaking Azurian," the tallest one said. "Our translation devices must be working correctly." "Where am I?" Jack asked, testing his restraints again. They were firm but not painful. "You are in Lumina Prime, the capital city of Azuris," the first being replied. "I am Zelkara, city administrator. This is Officer Vrax, our security chief." The tallest being stepped forward. "Your vessel crashed through our outer shield and landed in the central plaza. You are the first non-Azurian to visit our planet. How did you find us?" "I didn't find you on purpose," Jack explained. "My research ship malfunctioned. I had to use the escape pod. The landing wasn't exactly planned." Officer Vrax made a sound. That might have been a scoff. "A convenient story. No species has ever breached our planetary defenses before." "Vrax. Enough," Zelkara said sharply. She turned to Jack. "You must understand our caution. We have no record of your species in our extensive database of known civilizations. Earth only developed space travel recently," Jack explained. "We're still exploring our galactic neighborhood. I was collecting data on unexplored planets when my ship failed." Zelkara seemed to consider this. "What is your function among your people?" "I'm an engineer," Jack replied. "I specialize in environmental systems and infrastructure. Something changed in Zelkara's expression. An engineer? What types of systems? Water purification, air filtration, waste management, power distribution. Basically, all the systems that keep cities running. Zelkara and Vrax exchanged glances. The third Azurian left the room quickly. Your arrival may be more fortunate than we first thought, Zelkara said. She made a gesture with her long fingers, and Jack's restraints retracted into the bed. Can you stand? Jack slowly sat up, feeling a dull ache in his head. He stood cautiously, noticing that the Azurians were a full head taller than him. Why do you say that? Before Zelkara could answer, the room shook slightly. Dust fell from the ceiling and the lights flickered. That is why, Zelkara said grimly. Lumina Prime is failing. Our city's environmental and structural systems are breaking down, and our engineers cannot determine the cause. I can help, Jack offered immediately, if you'll let me. The council will never agree to let an alien interfere with city systems, Vrax objected. As if on cue, alarms began to sound throughout the building. The third Azurian rushed back into the room. Administrator, the purification system in Sector 7 has completely failed. Toxic gases are seeping into the residential areas. Vrax's communication device buzzed. Security team reports a possible sabotage attempt in the central filtration hub, he reported after listening. They need assistance to contain the situation. Zelkara seemed torn between multiple emergencies. Jack saw his opportunity. Take me to the filtration hub, he said firmly. I might see something your engineers missed. Absolutely not, Vrax began, but Zelkara cut him off. We have no choice, Vrax. The council can punish me later if they wish, she turned to Jack. Follow me, human, but know that if you cause any harm, intentionally or not, Officer Vrax has authorization to neutralize you. They hurried through corridors of the same strange, glowing material as the room. Jack glimpsed the city through large windows, a vast metropolis of towering spires and sweeping arches, all seemingly made of the same luminescent material. In the distance, a dark cloud was spreading through one section of the city. When they reached the filtration hub, chaos greeted them. Azurian engineers rushed about, frantically working at control panels. In the center of the room, a large cylindrical device was emitting sparks and dark smoke. The main filter is overloading, an engineer reported. We cannot shut it down without cutting off air to 3 sectors. But if it explodes, the toxic backup will flood the entire level. Jack stepped forward, studying the device. Its design was alien, but engineering principles were often universal. The override circuit is fused, he said, pointing to a section of the cylinder, but there should be a manual bypass. The Azurians stared at him. Jack didn't wait for permission. He grabbed a tool from a nearby table and moved to the cylinder. Working quickly, he removed a panel and examined the complex network of crystals and light-conducting fibers inside. These 2 connections are crossed, he muttered. Was this done deliberately? Using the tool, Jack rearranged several components. The sparking stopped immediately. The smoke began to clear. How did you know what to do? Zelkara asked, amazement clear in her voice. The basic principles are similar to Earth systems, just more advanced, Jack explained. But this wasn't an accident. Someone reconfigured these circuits intentionally. Vrax's eyes narrowed. Sabotage, as I suspected. Zelkara looked at Jack with new respect. It seems we have much to discuss, Jack Harrison of Earth. Perhaps beginning with why someone would want to destroy our city, and how a single human might help us stop them. Jack nodded, feeling the weight of an entire alien city's expectations suddenly fall on his shoulders. I'll help however I can. 3 days after saving the filtration hub, Jack stood at a large window overlooking Lumina Prime. The alien city stretched out below him in all directions, a vast network of gleaming towers connected by transparent bridges. From this height, he could see the damage spreading through the lower levels, dark patches where systems had failed and sections where the blue glow had dimmed. Beautiful, isn't it? Asked a voice behind him. Even in its current state. Jack turned to see an Azurian he hadn't met before. This one was shorter than Zelkara and had intricate patterns on their blue skin that seemed to shift in the light. I'm Dren, the Azurian said. Senior environmental engineer, Administrator Zelkara assigned me to work with you. Nice to meet you, Jack replied, extending his hand before remembering that Azurians didn't shake hands. He awkwardly lowered it. I've been reviewing the city's schematics. The problems are worse than I thought. Dren nodded gravely. 5 more sectors reported air quality alerts this morning. The council is meeting now to discuss evacuation options. Jack frowned. Evacuation? To where? That's the problem, Dren said. There is nowhere. Lumina Prime is our last major population center. Our other cities have been abandoned as our planet's atmosphere became increasingly toxic. This was news to Jack. He had been given limited information about Azurian civilization. What happened? To your atmosphere? Dren hesitated before answering. Centuries of energy production had unforeseen consequences. Our scientists realized too late that our methods were damaging the planet's core stability. Lumina Prime was built as a self-contained environment, but now even its systems are failing. An alarm sounded, cutting their conversation short. Dren's communication device lit up with an urgent message. We need to go, Dren said tensely. The lower residential district just lost its atmospheric seals. Toxic gas is seeping in. They rushed through the corridors, joining emergency teams heading to the affected area. When they arrived, they found chaos. Hundreds of Azurians were being evacuated from their homes, guided by security officers wearing protective gear. Jack could see a greenish mist creeping through the district. Officer Vrax spotted them and came over, his expression grim. The barrier failed completely. We're losing the entire sector. Let me see the control room, Jack said. Vrax led them to a small room filled with monitoring equipment. Jack studied the readings, then checked the system diagrams on the wall. The main purification system is overloading because it's trying to compensate for multiple sector failures, Jack explained. But there's a fundamental design flaw. The system was built assuming your planet's natural atmosphere would remain within certain parameters. As the outside air became more toxic, the system had to work harder until it reached its breaking point. Can it be fixed? Dren asked. Jack thought for a moment. Not completely, not without rebuilding the entire system, but I think we can create a temporary solution by rerouting the backup filters to create a cascading purification sequence. That would violate every safety protocol we have, Vrax objected. Your safety protocols were designed for a world that no longer exists, Jackie said firmly. We need to adapt. Before they could argue further, the door slid open and Zelkara entered, accompanied by an elderly Azurian with elaborate markings on their face. This is Council Elder Thrix, Zelkara introduced. The elder wished to observe our consultant firsthand. Thrix looked down at Jack with obvious disdain. This is the alien you believe can save us? It barely reaches my shoulder. Jack ignored the insult. I need access to your engineering systems and a team to help implement a temporary solution. We can stabilize the affected sectors within hours if we work quickly. Absolutely not, Thrix said immediately. For all we know, this creature created these problems to make itself seem necessary. That's ridiculous, Dren protested. Jack arrived only 3 days ago. These issues have been developing for months. Conveniently timed, wouldn't you say? Thrix countered. And now a single alien appears with solutions our best minds couldn't develop? I don't believe in such coincidences. The room shook suddenly, and dust fell from the ceiling. Another alarm blared. We don't have time for this, Jack said. Every minute we waste, more of your city becomes uninhabitable. Zelkara looked between Jack and Thrix, clearly torn. Another violent shake decided for her. Elder Thrix, with all respect, I am invoking emergency protocols. As city administrator, I am granting the human temporary authority to implement his solution. Thrix's face darkened with anger. The council will hear of this. After the elder stormed out, Jack explained his plan to Dren and the engineering team. That was quickly assembled. They worked rapidly, rerouting systems and creating new pathways for the air filtration. Jack's knowledge of Earth engineering principles provided new approaches that the Azurians had never considered. As they worked, they received word that a diplomatic vessel had entered orbit around the planet. Earth had sent its first official contact team, led by diplomat Lyra Wells. Your people found us quickly, Dren commented as they reconfigured a control panel. My ship would have sent an automated distress signal when it failed, Jack explained. They must have followed it here. 6 hours later, Jack's solution was in place. The greenish mist in the affected sectors began to dissipate as the new filtration sequence took effect. Zelkara watched the monitoring screens with growing hope. "It's working," she said, relief evident in her voice. "The toxicity levels are dropping." "This is only temporary," Jack cautioned. "It buys us time, but we need to address the root causes." Their moment of success was interrupted when Vrax burst into the room. "Administrator, we've detected unusual seismic activity beneath the city, and there's more. We've found evidence that the system failures were deliberately triggered." "Sabotage?" Zelkara asked, alarmed. "Yes. Someone has been systematically weakening the city's infrastructure." Jack wasn't entirely surprised. The pattern of failures had seemed too coordinated to be completely natural. "Any idea who's responsible?" Before Vrax could answer, an Azurian rushed in. "Administrator, the Earth diplomat has arrived at the landing bay. She's requesting to meet with you immediately, and she's asking about a human named Jack Harrison." Zelkara turned to Jack. "It seems your arrival here has created quite a stir among your people." "I should meet with them," Jack said. "They might have resources that could help us." "Very well," Zelkara agreed. "But this news of sabotage troubles me deeply. Someone wants Lumina Prime to fall, and we don't know why." As they headed to the landing bay to meet Lyra Wells, Jack felt the weight of responsibility growing. What had started as a simple crash landing had become something far more complex. Not only did he need to help save a dying alien city, but now he had to uncover who was actively trying to destroy it, and why. The gleaming towers of Lumina Prime loomed. Above him, their fate now partly in his hands, and somewhere in the shadows an enemy waited, watching his every move. Lyra Wells was not what Jack expected. The Earth diplomat was a short woman with curly brown hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She greeted Jack with a firm handshake and a look that said she had many questions. "Mr. Harrison, you've caused quite a stir back home," she said. "When your research vessel went dark, we feared the worst." "Sorry about that," Jack replied. "Engine failure, crash landing, alien city. It's been a busy week." Lyra smiled briefly before turning serious again. "I understand you've been helping the Azurians with their environmental systems. Our scans show significant instability in this region." Zelkara stepped forward. "Jack has been invaluable. Without his assistance, we would have lost several sectors already." The diplomat nodded thoughtfully. "I've brought a team of specialists who can help. But first, we need to understand exactly what's happening here." They moved to a conference room where Dren had prepared a detailed presentation of the city's problems. As they walked, Jack noticed the looks of wonder on the faces of the Earth team. They were the first humans besides Jack to see the inside of Lumina Prime. "The environmental failures are only part of the problem," Dren explained once they were seated. "We've detected unusual seismic activity deep beneath the city." "And evidence of sabotage," Vrax added. Lyra frowned. "Sabotage? By whom?" "That's what we need to find out," Jack said. "But first we need to stabilize the city's foundation. The seismic readings worry me." A female Azurian scientist entered the room. She was younger than Zelkara, with lighter blue skin and nervous movements. "This is Myla," Zelkara introduced her. "Our leading expert on planetary geology." Myla nodded timidly. "I've analyzed the recent readings. The problem is worse than we thought. Our planet's core has become unstable due to centuries of energy extraction. The Council forbade this research," Vrax said sharply. "Which is why we're in this mess," Myla replied with sudden fire. "We ignored the warnings for too long." Jack leaned forward. "What exactly is happening to the core?" Myla pulled up a holographic image of the planet. "Our ancestors built massive energy collectors that tapped into the planet's magnetic field. Over time, this disrupted the natural balance of the core. Now it's entering a phase of rapid destabilization." "That explains the seismic activity," Jack said. "The planet is literally falling apart from the inside." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this grim news. There's something else, Vrax said, breaking the silence. We found another human in the wilderness outside the city. Jack's head snapped up. Another human? Who? He says his name is Kevin Parker. Claims to be a survivor from a separate research mission. Something felt off to Jack. That's strange. Earth doesn't have any other missions in this sector. He's being brought to the city now, Vrax said. Perhaps you can question him yourself. Before they could discuss this further, another tremor shook the building. This one was stronger than before, and it lasted longer. We need to check the foundation stabilizers, Dren said urgently. That tremor was directly beneath us. Jack, Dren, and 2 members of Lyra's team headed down to the lowest level of the city. The stabilizers were massive machines that anchored the floating city to the bedrock below. When they arrived, they found several Azurian engineers already, working frantically. 3 of the main stabilizers have shifted out of alignment. One of them reported, "If we lose another, the entire northeast quadrant could collapse." Jack studied the complex machinery. It was unlike anything on Earth, but he could grasp the basic principles. We need to reinforce the connection points and redistribute the load. They worked for hours, making adjustments and repairs. Jack's practical approach complemented the Azurians' theoretical knowledge. Together they managed to stabilize the system temporarily. When they returned to the upper levels, they found Zelkara speaking with a human man. He was tall and muscular, with short black hair and a friendly smile. "Jack Harrison," the man said warmly. "I never expected to find another human here." "Kevin Parker," Jack replied, shaking his hand cautiously. "They tell me you crashed too?" "My ship was caught in a strange energy field," Kevin explained. "I've been surviving in the wilderness for weeks." Jack nodded, but something didn't add up. Kevin's uniform was too clean for someone who had been living rough for weeks, and there was something practiced about his story. Later, when they were alone, Jack shared his concerns with Lyra. "I agree," she said quietly. "His story doesn't check out, and he's been asking very specific questions about the city's defenses. We should tell Vrax to keep an eye on him," Jack suggested. That night, unable to sleep, Jack decided to check on the environmental controls he had helped reconfigure. As he approached the control room, he noticed the door was slightly open. Peering inside, he saw Kevin Parker hunched over a console, inserting something into the system. Jack pushed the door open. "What are you doing?" Kevin spun around, his friendly demeanor gone. "Just checking the system, professional curiosity." "At 3 a.m, without authorization?" Kevin's expression hardened. He lunged at Jack suddenly, shoving him against the wall. "You should have minded your own business, Harrison." They struggled, knocking over equipment. Jack managed to hit an alarm button before Kevin struck him hard across the face. Dazed, Jack watched as Kevin fled the room. Security officers arrived moments later, but Kevin had disappeared. When they checked the systems, they found a small device attached to the main control console. "It's a transmitter," Vrax said, carefully, removing it. "It was sending our security codes and system schematics to someone outside the city." The next morning, Zelkara called an emergency meeting. "We've intercepted communications between the human called Kevin and General Zorax of the Crimson Citadel." "Who's General Zorax?" Jack asked. "Leader of a rival city-state," Dren explained. "One of the few other habitable structures left on our world." Mila's face paled. "The Crimson Citadel has been trying to acquire our resources for years. If they know our weaknesses." "They do," Vrax confirmed grimly. "And according to the intercepted messages, Kevin has been sabotaging our systems to force an evacuation. Once we abandon Lumina Prime, Zorax's forces will move in and claim it." "But why?" Lyra asked. "If your planet is dying, what's the point?" "Control of the last viable city means control of our entire species' future," Zelkara explained. "Zorax doesn't want to save everyone, just those who would follow him." A massive tremor suddenly rocked the city, much stronger than any before. Alarms blared throughout the complex. "That wasn't natural," Miela said, checking her instruments. "Something triggered it artificially." Jack looked at the others, his expression grim. Kevin may have escaped, but his plan is still in motion. Lumina Prime is running out of time. The artificial tremor caused significant damage to Lumina Prime. 3 residential sectors lost power, and a major support column cracked, threatening an entire district. Jack, Dren, and Lyra rushed to the city's command center, where Zelkara was coordinating emergency efforts. The shield generators are failing, an Azurian technician reported. Sectors 12 through 17 will be exposed to the toxic atmosphere within 1 hour. How many people live in those sectors? Jack asked. Nearly 10,000, Zelkara replied grimly, including many children. We need to evacuate them immediately, Lyra said. Zelkara shook her head. Where would we move them? The safe sectors are already overcrowded. Jack studied the city schematics displayed on the large screen. What about the emergency shelters in the central hub? They can only hold 2,000 at most, Dren explained. The situation was desperate. Jack paced the room trying to think of a solution. Then an idea struck him. Your ships, he said suddenly. The diplomatic vessels in the docking bay. How many people can they hold? The largest can accommodate 500, Vrax replied. But we only have 6 ships operational. That's 3,000 people, Jack calculated quickly. Combined with the emergency shelters, we can save 5,000. And the other 5,000? Zelkara asked softly. Jack's mind raced. Lyra, can you contact the Earth ship in orbit? We need every available transport. Lyra nodded and activated her communication device. Commander Rodriguez, this is Wells. We have an emergency situation. While Lyra coordinated with the Earth vessel, Jack turned to Dren. We need to buy more time. Is there any way to temporarily strengthen the shields in the affected sectors? Dren thought for a moment. We could reroute power from non-essential systems, but it would only give us an extra hour at most. Do it, Jack decided. Every minute counts. As they worked, a young Azurian approached Jack. She couldn't have been more than the equivalent of a human teenager, but her eyes held wisdom beyond her years. My name is Trill, she said. My home is in Sector 14. Is it true we must leave? Jack knelt down to meet her eyes. Yes, but we're going to make sure everyone gets to safety. My grandfather says humans are trouble, Trill said candidly. But you're trying to help us. Sometimes it takes an outsider to see solutions others might miss, Jack replied gently. Trill nodded thoughtfully, like how younglings can sometimes solve puzzles that adults cannot. Exactly like that. Their conversation was interrupted when Commander Maya Rodriguez of the Earth vessel appeared on the main communication screen. We've dispatched all available shuttles, she reported. They can accommodate another 2,000 people. We're also sending down environmental specialist Ben Foster with some equipment that might help. That still leaves 3,000 people without evacuation options, Vrax pointed out. Jack stood up straight, determination in his eyes. Then we need to fix the shield generators before the toxic atmosphere gets in. The next few hours were a blur of activity. While evacuation efforts began, Jack and Dren led a team to the shield generator complex. The damage was extensive, worse than they had feared. The main power coupling is completely fried, Dren said, examining the smoking equipment. We don't have replacement parts of this size. Ben Foster, the environmental specialist from the Earth ship, studied the damaged components. What if we bypass the main coupling entirely? Create a direct line from the auxiliary power source? That would overload the system within minutes, Dren objected. Not if we modify the flow regulators, Jack suggested. We could use the Earth ship's emission filters as buffers. Ben nodded eagerly. That might work. I'll have them send down what we need. As they waited for the equipment, Council Elder Thrix arrived. The Elder Azurian looked tired and less hostile than before. The Council has reviewed the evidence regarding General Zorax, Thrix said to Jack. It appears we owe you an apology. We have been too skeptical of your assistance. There's no time for that now, Jack replied. We need access to the original shield designs. There might be something in them that could help us. Thrix hesitated, then made a decision. There is, ancient knowledge that might assist you. The shield technology was adapted from an earlier civilization that once inhabited our world. The complete records are kept in the restricted archives. With Thrix's authorization, they gained access to the archives. The ancient designs revealed a fundamental principle that the modern Azurians had overlooked, a way to create a self-sustaining shield using the planet's natural magnetic field. "This changes everything," Jack said excitedly. "We don't need to fix the generators, we need to transform them." Working with frantic energy, they modified the remaining shield systems according to the ancient designs. Ben's equipment from the Earthship provided the missing components they needed. As the toxic clouds crept closer to the vulnerable sectors, they raced against time. "The integration is at 90%, Dren reported, monitoring the systems. But something's wrong with the central node. It's not accepting the reconfiguration." Jack examined the diagnostic readings. "The node needs to be reset manually. Someone has to go into the chamber and do it in person." "That's impossible," Thrix said. "The chamber is flooded with radiation from the damaged core. No Azurian could survive exposure for more than a few seconds." "What about a human?" Jack asked. "Our physiology is different." Ben shook his head. "You'd last longer than an Azurian, but not long enough to complete the reset. It would be suicide." Jack looked at the evacuation reports. Despite their best efforts, there were still over 1,000 people who couldn't be moved in time. Among them was young Trill and her family. "How long would I have?" Jack asked quietly. "Maybe 2 minutes before permanent damage," Ben replied. "The reset sequence takes at least 3. Jack made his decision. "I'm going in." Despite protests from everyone, Jack prepared to enter the chamber. He put on the best protective gear available, though everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. "The city has a failsafe," Dren explained as he helped Jack with the equipment. "If the reset works, all shield systems will come online at once. You need to get out immediately after initiating the sequence." Jack nodded. "I'll move as fast as I can." As he approached the chamber door, Zelkara stopped him. "Why are you doing this? These are not your people." Jack smiled sadly. "When I crashed here, you could have left me to die. Instead, you gave me a chance. Some things are worth the risk." With those words, Jack entered the chamber, carrying the city's hopes with him. Behind him, Azurians and humans alike watched the monitors, praying for a miracle. The radiation chamber was bathed in an eerie red light. Jack could feel the heat even through his protective suit as he stepped inside. The central node stood in the middle, a tall column of crystal and metal pulsing with energy. "I'm at the node," Jack reported through his communication device. "Beginning the reset sequence now. Remember, you have less than 2 minutes before dangerous exposure levels," Ben's voice reminded him. "Work fast." Jack's hands moved quickly over the control panel. The ancient designs they had discovered required a complex series of adjustments. As he worked, he could feel the radiation seeping through his suit. His skin began to tingle uncomfortably. 1 minute of safe exposure remaining, Dren warned. The reset sequence was only halfway complete. Jack increased his pace, ignoring the growing discomfort. Sweat poured down his face inside the helmet. "Jack, your vital signs are becoming unstable." Lyra's concerned voice came through. "You need to get out of there." "Almost done," Jack replied, his voice strained. "Just a few more adjustments." His vision began to blur around the edges. The tingling had turned to a burning sensation across his skin. Still, he worked on, knowing thousands of lives depended on his success. "Safe exposure time exceeded," Ben reported grimly. "Jack, you need to evacuate now." "Just one more." Jack gasped as he input the final command. The central node hummed loudly, then glowed bright blue instead of red. "It's done. The sequence is initiated." He turned to leave, but his legs felt weak. He stumbled, catching himself against the wall. The room began to spin around him. "I don't think I can make it out," he admitted, sliding down to his knees. In the control room, Zelkara made a sudden decision. Despite protests from her advisors, she grabbed a protective suit. "What are you doing?" Vrax demanded. "Saving the key. Human who saved us," she replied, sealing the helmet. The reset sequence has begun. The radiation levels will drop enough for me to survive a quick retrieval. Before anyone could stop her, Zelkara rushed into the chamber. She found Jack barely conscious on the floor. Without hesitation, she lifted him, his human frame lighter than an Azurian of similar size, and carried him out. Medical teams were waiting. They rushed Jack to the treatment center where both human and Azurian doctors worked frantically to counter the radiation effects. For hours, his life hung in the balance. Meanwhile, the reset worked perfectly. The shield systems came online across the entire city, stronger than before. The toxic atmosphere was pushed back, and the residents of the endangered sectors were saved. Word spread quickly about the human who had risked his life to save them. 3 days later, Jack opened his eyes. In the medical center, the first thing he saw was Trill sitting beside his bed working on some kind of colorful craft project. "He's awake!" she called out excitedly. Lyra, Dren, and Zelkara hurried to his bedside. Relief was evident on all their faces. "How long was I out?" Jack asked, his voice hoarse. 3 days, Lyra replied. "You nearly died, Jack." "But it worked? The shields are up?" Dren nodded. "Better than before. By using the ancient designs, we've created a more stable system than we've had in decades." Jack tried to sit up but found himself too weak. Zelkara gently helped him. "There is more news," she said. "While you were recovering, our detection systems intercepted a fleet of ships approaching from the Crimson Citadel. General Zorax has launched his attack, believing our defenses to be crippled." "What are we going to do?" Jack asked. Zelkara smiled, the first real smile Jack had seen from her. "Thanks to you, we are no longer defenseless. And we have allies. Now," she gestured toward the window. Jack could see several Earth vessels had joined the Azurian ships in orbit around the planet. "Commander Rodriguez refused to leave us to face Zorax alone," Lyra explained. "Earth has officially recognized Lumina Prime as a friendly civilization and offered protection." A week later, Jack stood on a balcony overlooking the city. He was still weak but recovering. The shield dome above the city glowed with a beautiful blue light, stronger than ever before. In the distance, he could see repair teams working on the damaged sectors. Dren joined him at the railing. "Zorax's fleet retreated when they saw our combined forces. One of his officers defected to our side, an Azurian named Vex. He's provided valuable intelligence about Zorax's plans." "So it's over?" Jack asked. "This battle, yes," Dren replied. "But our planet's core is still unstable. We have much work ahead of us." An Azurian approached them, one Jack hadn't met before. She carried what looked like architectural plans. "This is Alara," Dren introduced her. "Our chief architect. She has been inspired by your Earth designs." Alara unrolled her plans on a nearby table. "I've been studying human architecture. Your species has fascinating approaches to environmental integration that we never considered. I've designed a new district that combines our technologies." Jack studied the plans with genuine interest. "This is remarkable. You've taken Earth concepts but improved them with Azurian materials." Their discussion was interrupted by the arrival of an impressive Earth ship at the main docking bay. From it emerged a distinguished older human man in formal diplomatic attire. "That's Ambassador Alan Wright," Lyra explained, joining them. "He's here to establish a permanent Earth embassy in Lumina Prime." Later that day, a formal ceremony was held in the city's Great Hall. Jack, still moving carefully, stood beside Zelkara as she addressed the gathered Azurians and humans. "Today marks a new chapter for our world," she announced. "The alliance between our peoples saved Lumina Prime when we faced our darkest hour." She turned to Jack. "In recognition of his courage and sacrifice, the Council has unanimously voted to name Jack Harrison as the first non-Azurian guardian of Lumina Prime." Even Council Elder Thrick stepped forward and bowed respectfully to Jack as the crowd cheered. "What does a guardian do exactly?" Jack whispered to Zelkara. "They protect the city and guide its future," she replied. "Will you accept this honor?" Jack thought about Earth, about his old life as a research engineer. Then he looked around at the faces of the people he had helped save, Azurians and the new human arrivals working together. "Yes," he said simply. "I will." That evening, Jack stood at his favorite window, watching the sun set over Lumina Prime. The city glowed with renewed energy. In the districts below, he could see humans and Azurians working side by side on reconstruction projects. Young Trill and a group of children from both species played in a newly created garden space. Ambassador Wright joined him at the window. "Quite a view. Hard to believe just 2 weeks ago you crashed here by accident." "Some accidents change everything," Jack replied. "Earth would like you to serve as our official liaison to the Azurians," Wright offered. "Your understanding of both cultures is unique." Jack nodded, watching the twin moons of Azuris rise above the horizon. "A single human who became an alien city's final hope," he mused quietly. "And now that same city might become hope for both our peoples." Below them, Lumina Prime continued to shine, a beacon of cooperation in the darkness of space. Proof that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places.